Senate will come back to order. Members of the Senate, each year the Wyoming Legislature sponsors the Legislative Internship Program, providing high school and college students with a unique insight into the legislative branch of government and its crucial role in creating public policy. 3 of the 7 high school interns will complete their internships on Friday. We want to acknowledge them for their hard work. Senators, please join me in recognizing and congratulating these outstanding students seated in the gallery today. Kristen Boyson from Cody High School, Clayton Fodor from Cheyenne Central, Taylor Peters from Powell High School. Students, please stand and be recognized. Thank you for your outstanding work during this session, and we wish you the very best in your academic endeavors and future success. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Privilege of the floor.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce today the Wyoming Federation of Republican Women and their good chairwoman, Sherry Davis. They're up here in the gallery. Please give them a hearty Senate welcome.
All right. Welcome to the Senate. All right, reports from standing committees.
Mr. President, your dated February 18th, 2026, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom was referred Joint Resolution 5, Convention of States, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass, voting ayes Senators Crago, Crum, Hicks, Kolb, and Olson, signed Senator Olson, Chairman. Mr. President, dated February 18th, 2026, your committee number 4, Education, to whom was referred Senate File 72, Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass, voting ayes Senators Brennan, Olson, Rothfuss, Schuler, and Scott, signed Senator Schuler, Chairman. Mr. President, dated February 18th, 2026, your committee number 4, Education, to whom was referred Senate File 35, School District Cell Phone and Smartwatch Policies, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass amended, signed Senators Brennan, Olson, Rothfuss, Schuler, and Scott, Senator Schuler, Chairman. Mr. President, dated February 18th, 2026, your committee number 4, Education, to whom was referred Senate File 90, School Facilities Use Fees, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass amended, voting ayes Senator Brennan, Olson, Rothfuss, Schuler, and Scott, signed Senator Schuler, Chairman. Mr. President, your committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom was referred Senate File 102, Wyoming Energy Transmission Study, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass as amended, voting aye Senators Boner, Case, Dockstader, Landon, and Steinmetz, signed Senator Case, Chairman. Mr. President, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom was referred Senate File 22, Unincorporated Nonprofit Associations Amendments, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass, voting aye Senators Anderson, Cooper, and Rothfuss, excused Senators Jones and Nethercott, signed Senator Anderson, Chairman. Mr. President, dated February 18th, 2026, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom was referred Senate File 55, Special Purpose Depository Institution Amendments, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass, voting aye Senators Anderson, Cooper, Jones, Nethercott, and Rothfuss, signed Senator Anderson, Chairman. Mr. President, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business and Economic Development, dated February 18th, 2026, to whom was referred Senate File 54, State Banks and SPDI Conversions, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass. Voting aye, Senators Anderson, Cooper, Nethercott, Rothfuss, excused Senator Jones, signed Senator Anderson, Chairman. Mr. President, your committee numbers dated February 18th, 2026, your committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom was referred Senate File 117, Zoning Protest Petition Amendments, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass amended. Voting ayes, Senators Boner, Case, Dockstader, Landon, and Steinmetz, signed Senator Case, Chairman.
Thank you, Tom. All right, Madam Majority Floor Leader, we're at that order of business, consideration of bills on general file.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate resolve itself into committee of the whole.
You've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Senator Love. Should we do this stuff too?
The Committee of the Whole will please come to order. The first bill for our consideration is Senate File 71. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 71, Wyoming Department of Homeland Security, an act relating to the administration of the government, sponsored by Senator Olson, referred to Committee Number 1, which returned a do pass recommendation. Voting ayes, Senators Crego, Crum, Kolb, Olson, excused Senator Hicks, signed Senator Olson, Chairman.
Point of order. Those point of orders, can we get those larger so that the people in the house can before senators would actually see more of the policy?
Very good, we have that accomplished. You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Olson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was a little bit worried when I stood up and then there was a point of order across the room. I couldn't figure out what I had already done wrong just by standing, but so I will move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report that it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 71 do pass. There are no amendments to this bill, and I will explain it as it is my bill. So you had a brief introduction to this bill on your introductory vote. Just to explain it a little more, and this is a really simple bill. This bill comes from the department that oversees your state's budget, as well as the office that oversees Homeland Security. What this bill does is it takes the Office of Homeland Security out from under the governor's budget and puts it into its own department. Now, why do we want to do that? So here, think about it like this. 71% of the governor's entire budget for his office is the Department of Homeland Security, the Office of Homeland Security. So the governor's budget, if you were a member of the public and you went and pulled up the governor's budget for his office, you would see in this budget $41,379,077. And of that, 29 million and some change is the Office of Homeland Security. So the governor's actual budget is only 6 million per year. It's 12 million per biennium under this existing budget. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for Homeland Security to eat up that much of the budget when you look at it from a transparency and clarity standpoint. If you're just a member of the public, you have no idea why this budget is so big, you don't understand what it is, and then you realize, oh, this is actually an entire division by itself. I think that makes a lot more sense to move it out from under the governor's budget and create its own department. So with this bill, there are no additional full-time employees. Everything stays the same. The employees transfer along with the department. All of the assets of the office transfer to the department, and there is no appropriation. So the money that's already been appropriated will be appropriated. Whatever we do with the budget, it'll just go with it to the department. There's no need to deal with any of that. If you're looking at your fiscal note, you will see a $3,000 fiscal note. That's not an appropriation. It's just a fiscal note. The office will assume and eat that fee, and that's basically the money to update badges and letterhead. It's pretty minimal. So that's the bill, Mr. Chairman, and I will take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Any discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Olson's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 71 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. Senate File 71 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 126. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 126, Wyoming Ireland Trade Commission, an act relating to economic development sponsored by Senator Anderson, referred to Committee Number 9, which returned a do pass recommendation, voting ayes, Senator Anderson, Cooper, Nethercott, Rothfuss, excused, Senator Jones, signed Senator Anderson, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Anderson?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 126, Wyoming Ireland Trade Commission, do pass. And I have a subject matter expert that's going to talk on this, and I'll turn it over to him, Senator Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd ask for your favorable consideration on Senate File 126, Ireland Trade Commission. Folks, this is a bill that was here last year, passed out with a heavy majority and never got heard down the aisle from here. What this really does, for those of you that have been around a little bit, it's very similar to the Taiwan Trade Office, but it's a kind of a modified end. Is in about 20-some states, the Irish have trade commissions established now. They don't hand money out, they don't hand favors out. What they really do is promote trade, education, and works between the two countries. So I'll work you through it real quick. Forms the commission, 2 people from the governor, 2 from the House, 2 from the Senate, 1 from the House appointed by the minority floor leader, 1 by the Senate minority floor leader, and 1 person the board appoints. Kind of goes together. Our countries are very similar, folks. They're not a long ways off in a lot of ways. We're ag-based with a lot of stuff that they don't have the energy part, but there's a lot of tourism, a lot of that end of it, so we're very close. Also, a lot of Irish heritage. I could cheat and make the Irish people stand up in here, but not all of them might claim it. So at any rate, what it really does is it does a commission. They meet quarterly, get together and find ways to try to put it together. The purposes of it are basically all laid out on page 6, and that's the kind of the guts of it. And I'm just going to read that end of it. Purpose of the Wyoming Ireland Trade Commission shall be to advance, promote, and encourage business and other mutually beneficial activities between Wyoming and Ireland, including bilateral trade and investment, joint action on policy issues of mutual interest, business and academic exchanges, mutual economic support, mutual investment in infrastructure, other opportunities for mutual benefit and economic growth is identified by the commission. So it's really just a start of trying to, how do we spark trade between two different countries and do it? Ireland's a sleeper, folks. It's the gateway to the European Union, and basically all of the major companies, including a lot of them in the United States, some of our biggest banking companies, some of the ones that have data centers here across town, their headquarters for the European theater are all in Ireland. And it really leaves us with a backdoor base to be able to take a hard look at attracting business and doing it. And it doesn't cost much. What it is, it's basically the entire cost of it is travel for our legislators, which is very similar to some of the trips we do. So it's not we're not standing up a government agency. We're not doing grants or loans or any of the stuff. It's just literally, how do you sit down with the neighbor, try to figure out how we can do things that are mutually beneficial. Some of them may be monetary, some of them may be being friends with them. So long and short, that's what the bill does and what it is. I am, as a little bit of I won't declare conflict, but I am the national co-chair of the Irish American Caucus, which is kind of interesting. I'm the only one from the state that doesn't have a trade commission that's there. I've been the co-chair for a couple of years on it. So I'd stand for questions and ask for your support.
Thank you, Senator Driscoll. Is there any other discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Anderson's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with a recommendation that Senate File 126 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. Motion carries. Senate File 126 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 57. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 57, Transparency in Hospital Service Pricing, an act relating to public health and safety, sponsored by Senator Brennan, referred to Committee Number 10, which gave a do pass as amended recommendation. Voting ayes, Senators Brennan, Hutchings, Scott, and Steinmetz. Conflict, Senator Crum, signed Senator Brennan, Chairman.
There is an amendment. There is an amendment. Very good. You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Brennan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rise to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 57 do pass. And there is an amendment, and we can go ahead and have that read in at this time.
Thank you. There is an amendment. Will the reading clerk read the amendment?
Senate File 57, Standing Committee, Amendment Number 1, page 2, line 3.
All right, I would move Standing Committee Amendment 1 to Senate File 57. And I will give you an explanation of the bill and the amendment when we get to it. Members of the body, this bill has to do with hospital price transparency. And you'll remember that we had a very similar bill that came through our body last year, but it wasn't ready for prime time. So I have worked hard with invested parties in this to really get a bill that does what we're trying to do, which is that we know that hospital price transparency is important to our constituents, to the people of Wyoming. We all have stories of going to a hospital and ending up with something that a price that we didn't expect or know about. There's also currently federal rules and regulations surrounding this. So we have worked hard to really try to be able to mirror and then codify what is going on federally with hospital price transparency in this. Of note that this bill is going to really help give some good estimates in hospital price transparency. Sometimes what does happen is you'll go in for one problem, and like with a car, sometimes when you take it, you go in for one problem and the mechanic finds 3 problems. That happens with our bodies too. Sometimes we go to the doctor for one problem, the hospital for one problem, and the physician might find 3 problems. So this is an estimate of what it would be. We'll go ahead, I want to walk through a very high level of this bill. On page 2, lines 5 through 10, this really gives the purpose of the bill, that this act will be cited as the Hospital Price Transparency Act. And if you take nothing away, the purpose of this act is to require hospitals to disclose prices for certain items and services and to provide civil penalties. Continuing on page 2, starting with lines 12 through page 5, these are all definitions of the bill. We go to page 6, starting on lines 4. This gives direction on what standard charges the hospital must keep and how they are kept so that they are searchable and patients can find them on the hospital websites. Page 10 allows the department that deals with health to monitor the compliance with this law. On to page 11, this gives a corrective action plan to hospitals. Of note here, we modeled this. Hospitals are very used to corrective action plans and having to correct things. Some hospitals are monitored by the part of the department that will pay for services under Medicaid and Medicare, and others will actually pay big fees for memberships to have organizations come in and tell them what they're doing right and doing wrong. And when they find something that's not right, they put the hospital into a corrective action plan. And so we're just doing the same thing here. When we find that a hospital is out of compliance, we're going to have them have a corrective action plan. Page 13 outlines the civil penalties. Page 4, down at the bottom on line 20, we have legislative recommendations. So we're just asking the department that monitors this to come back to the legislature and give recommendations. A lot of this too is a work in progress federally, and so we want to be monitoring what's going on, how things are working, what things might need to be changed. Page 15 outlines the conditions and gives the ability for a license to be revoked. Section 3 will give the department the ability to promulgate rules. And then I think we get to the part then where we have the standing committee amendment. I will talk about that, and then the amendment was brought by another member of the health committee, sorry. And so I'll let him explain this a little bit more. But what this does is it gives the legislature the opportunity to come back and either make amendments or repeal this act depending on how things are going. And then we have that this act goes effective July 1, except sections 3 and 4, they're effective immediately. So with that, if Senator Scott wants to do more with the amendment, I would do that at that time, and I can take any questions.
Mr. Chairman, what the amendment does is it puts a classic sunset date on it. It's particularly important here The federal government is active in this area, although they're working through executive orders more than they are legislation. There are likely to be changes because of the federal activity, and hospital transparency is difficult, Mr. Chairman, in good part because oftentimes when you go in the hospital and get something done, they do find things where they have one plan when they start the operation, and they go in and find something a little different, and they have to change things. That happens. You have complications. It's not a cut and dried thing. And frankly, the transparency has been difficult to achieve. We're trying to work on it. I think having a review, and it's 2 general sessions out because of a sunset, will enable us to bring this law up to date because the world is changing rapidly here, and we can expect progress in learning how to do this transparency. So for all those reasons, a sunset date makes a lot of sense in this bill, and I urge the adoption of the Standing Committee amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. You've heard the motion on Standing Committee amendment. No? Yep. On the amendment?
On the amendment and also on the bill. I'll be voting conflict. I'm a member of the board of the best hospital in the state located in the Gem City. And just for that reason, I'll be voting conflict both on the amendment and on the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any other discussion on the amendment? Question having been called, all those in favor of the Standing Committee amendment number Senate File 57, Amendment 1, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Standing Committee Amendment number 1, Senate File 57, has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Is there any discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Senate File 57, motion that the Senator Brennan's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with a recommendation that Senate File 57 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 57 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 122. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 122, Medical Necessity Standard Timeline Amendments, an act relating to the insurance code sponsored by Senator Dockstader, referred to Committee Number 10, which returned a do-pass recommendation, voting ayes, Senators Brennan, Crum, Hutchings, Scott, and Steinmetz, signed Senator Brennan, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Dockstader?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring you Senate File 122, Medical Necessity Standard Timeline Amendments. Members of the Senate, this simply amends the number of days a health insurer has to determine medical necessity of health care, and the 2 key changes come on page 2, line 6 and 9, taking it from 45 days to 21 days. Members of the Senate,
Point of order, Mr. Boner, Senator Boner.
Did the committee chairman move that bill? I think they're supposed to.
Senator Brennan, would you like to move the bill?
I would love to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the bill I move that when the committee of the whole rise to report, that it do so with a recommendation that Senate File 122 do pass, and for an explanation of the bill, we'll go to the sponsor of the bill.
Senator Dockstader, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Boner. We're back on track. As I said, Senate File 122, medical necessity timeline amendments, amending the number of days health insurer has to determine the medical necessity of health care services, taking it from 45 days to 21 days. Page 2, line 6 and 9. Members of the Senate, this amends those number of days for the insurer to determine the necessity of the health care services, do it in a timely decision-making process. We originally thought we had funding involved in that, making sure the funding was taken care of. That is a different section. But the more I thought about it, I thought this is a good approach too. We bring all the parties to the table, including the insurers, and say it's time to make some improvements on this process, because we've all been through it. It takes a long time to get a decision out there. We're wondering, as those who receive the insurance benefits, our hospitals wondering, our providers are wondering. This simply tightens it up and calls for a timely decision. Unlike, while the decision is, as I noted, doesn't include the funding, it does allow us to get to the point and get a decision made so that we don't have to carry out wondering whether we're going to be covered or not. Simply, the insurance companies need to be more reasonable and timely with this process. Shortening the time period helps us, both the patient and the hospital, as I noted. But I think it also, in a roundabout way, it helps the insurance companies too, because they can keep the business rolling and keep the work going. I think it's important that we say we appreciate these companies being in a small state. There's not a lot of us here. We appreciate them being here and providing coverage, but we need to improve this process, step up the process, have it done in a more timely manner. This brings everybody to the table. We get the decisions faster, and it helps our healthcare providers, especially in this state where we've got small hospitals. They need to know where they're at in the decision-making process. They need to factor it in with their fiscal planning and all of that. This is a good move to simply say, this is what we're covering, what we're not covering, and doing it in a very timely fashion. I ask for the body's support.
Thank you, Senator Dockstader. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Brennan's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that the Senate File 122 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Senate File 122 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 124. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 124, Economic Development Rodeo Museum, an act relating to tourism, sponsored by Senator Driscoll, referred to Committee Number 2, which returned a do pass recommendation. Voting ayes, Senators Driscoll, Garou, Larson, Salazar. Voting no, Senator French. Signed, Senator Salazar, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Salazar?
With a recommendation that Senate File 124 do pass, and with the explanation, Senator Driscoll. Thank you.
Senator Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is an amendment. Can we have the amendment read in, please?
There is an amendment. The reading clerk will read the amendment.
Senate File 124, Committee of the Whole, Amendment Number 1, page 2, line 2.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move for Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, Senate File 124. And folks, I'll go right into the amendment and the bill together because the amendment actually kind of updates the bill a little bit. We did quite a little work on this bill to make sure for everybody out there that it's very constitutional. We've spent a lot of time back and forth making sure the legalities are good on it. So we go back into some definitions and the funds. So if you look at the bill, it starts out, it's providing for appropriation, going through it. On page 2, line 2, we delete out the providing funds. That's part of the language to make the bill track the way it should through the end of it. Further down on the page, we also, once again, said delete for and attracting and insert to contract with. So, and then on page line 2-4 is a definition that says to Wyoming and insert, and this is key to it, project to promote tourism and preserve Wyoming's cowboy heritage and Western history. On page 2, line 18 through 22, this is the money distribution part, and that goes all the way through this part of the amendment. So what it really does is the total dollar amount's the same, but it changes the timing a little bit on it. So what it really does is it moves back in on page 3, and here's the way it'll work is, these are funds that come out of the tourism account. $3 million should be made available effective date of this act and distributed not later than April 15th, 2026. $2 million shall be distributed on July 2026. And $10 million shall be distributed on July 1, 2027, or as soon as the funds are available. Going through the rest of it, it's just tracking it back in on page 3. We deleted applications for a grant and created requests for qualifications. That makes it so that it's open. This is the way it runs. Goes through, and basically these are all tracking the same way, and we changed grant to project. And then on the page 4, lines 13 says delete until the project cannot be completed by June 2030. And what that does is the money will revert back. So there's not a way for somebody to get money out of this and not work. So with that, I'm going to go back in, and we're just going to go to the general explanation of what it is. And I did a big part of it, and we laid this out. Folks, this is a dream come true for the state of Wyoming. Is a group here in Cheyenne that does their economic development, that does it very, very well. Came up with $15 million of private money. They came to the state and asked for $15 million match of tourism money, and that would be done to bring in a professional rodeo cowboys association, their museum, and their Hall of Fame. And so folks, kind of the way that lays out is it's really an interesting end of it. This started not that long ago. What it really means is, in my opinion, Cheyenne's going to become one of the major legs of tourism in the state of Wyoming. As you all know, I live by a rock that has a lot of people come to it. Senator Grew lives by a bigger rock that has more people come to it. It's now the second largest source of income to the state of Wyoming is tourism. Cheyenne's figured out that it's not just about data centers, wind, and other things that happen here. They're wanting into the tourism market. They have more people go by their front door than I see in 5 years at my place. It's pretty interesting. It's in a natural spot, 2 interstates. So what this does is it's going to bring in 368 construction jobs, but more important than that, it brings in 251 direct jobs. They'll bring in almost 100 jobs from the PRCA by itself. The part of this that the bill doesn't address, this is not just a PRCA and Hall of Fame move. This is going to be an 800-acre development by the group down here. It's going to involve Western stores, all kinds of end of it, and I'm suspicious it's going to affect businesses pretty far north of here. These guys have done things well. They've done it right. And this project, to me, is exactly what Wyoming's looking for. We're looking for things all day long. We talk about this doesn't match what we like. It doesn't match our heritage. This is the cowboy state, and this is actually what we love. We sport rodeo. I'm looking up here to the front row to a guy that got a rodeo plate for us last year. We have it on our license plates now. This is the next leg. I can tell you this is a crown jewel. There's a state that has a star on it that's a lot bigger than Wyoming that is not very happy it's coming here. And, you know, these folks did the deal the right way, and they're bringing something to Wyoming that we can say, you know, we trumped one of the big boys. in my opinion, this is probably the best economic project I've seen that's black and white. Folks, we have a chance to either bring 100 full-time jobs to Wyoming, invest in it, have less than a 10-year payback, and make that $15 million back every single year we get the income from it. Or we can say no and read in the paper where another business moved to another state. This is black and white, folks. It's either you're in or you're out. If we don't do this, we're out. I can assure you there's a lot of competition for this. Our folks did an incredible job of getting them to commit to look at us first. With that, I'm going to stand for questions. I think it's that good a project. Actually, I ought to do one other thing, because I've had some questions on the constitutionality. And we've spent a bunch of time dealing with the AG's office and the other. And on the handout that was at the reception, is this constitutional? And I'm just going to read it. Tourism Projects Reserve Account 446 was created by the legislature, and listen to this, to fund special tourism projects. That's what this fund was created for. Project Blue Moon, PRCA, fits the use of these funds as a development destination project that will encourage other developments and projects across the state. That's the start of it's 800 acres. They didn't try to just do one. They're doing a big development with it that does not involve the state. This project benefits the entire state of Wyoming by bringing more tourism dollars to the state and expanding to all Wyoming rodeo communities by increasing visitor spending, creating jobs, and creating tax revenue. Primary expenditures for a public benefit to bring more tourism to the state of Wyoming, which benefits all of us. I can tell you, I live in a business. Tourism sends huge checks back into our communities. I can tell you the little corner I'm at, 4 or 5 businesses employ over 100 people. That's our neighbors, our wives, and our high school kids. Folks, I'd stand for questions, but tell you this is the best project I've seen in my career here. I'd ask for a vote on the amendment. The amendment's been moved. Thank you.
You have heard the motion on the Standing Committee Amendment number 1 for Senate File 124. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Question having been called, all those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment number 1 on Senate File 124, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. No. Standing Committee Amendment number 1, Senate File, Committee of the Whole Amendment. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Is there any discussion on the bill? Are you ready for the, Mr. Ide, Senator Ide.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This one, been thinking about a long time since I read about it in the newspaper. And it's aligns with my values as much as anybody in both chambers. I was a member of the PRCA back in my 20s and 30s, and I rodeoed with a lot of those guys that are in the Hall of Fame. They were a lot better than I was. That's why I'm here today. So anyway, I don't need to probably reiterate it so many times here. I just don't, this should be done through the private sector, not through the, forced coercion from the taxpayers, effectively is what it is, in my opinion. We're still open for business. We're just not open for the way we're doing business, in my opinion, on this bill right here. I think we should do it the cowboy way, where you do it voluntarily. And I think that's the most honest way to do it. And I think that aligns with our values as much as anything. So I'm on and against this bill here. I will be the first one to donate privately to this. I'll donate my salary here for the 2026 legislative session. I think that's what tourism ought to be doing, is raising money privately. So, not to belabor that, I'm a no vote on this, and I would encourage everybody to just raise this capital privately and make that match. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Ide. Any other discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Salazar's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 124 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Division being called. All those in favor, please stand. Thank you very much. That's 19. All those opposed, please stand. (19 to 6). Senate File 124 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for consideration is Senate File 20. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 20, Data Privacy Government Entities, an act relating to the administration of the government, sponsored by the Blockchain Special Select Committee, referred to Committee Number 9, which returned a recommendation of do pass as amended, voting aye, Senators Anderson, Nethercott, Rothfuss. Voting no, Senators Cooper and Jones. Signed, Senator Anderson, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Anderson?
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with a recommendation that Senate File 20, data privacy, government entities, do pass. And to discuss this good little bill, I've got a subject matter expert, Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Senate File 20, Data Privacy Government Entities, was a product of the work of the Select Committee on Blockchain. It was actually done last year, and then it came through the legislative process, passed unanimously out of the Senate, went down the hall, and then was kind of left languishing on their general file and never considered again. So we brought it back this year for further consideration, Mr. Chairman. And so I'm going to go a little bit quicker than I might otherwise go, since you've all seen this before. But the purpose of this bill is to provide some privacy protections and access rights to the citizens of the state of Wyoming for data that is held by the government of the state of Wyoming. It provides some protections against selling that data, transferring that data, and using that data in ways that are not consistent with policies associated with their data protection. It provides quite a few areas for flexibility, though, to ensure that the government can operate efficiently. On page 2, we begin definitions. On to page 3. The definition of law enforcement is very broad, and you'll see that law enforcement is actually exempt from this because law enforcement already has pretty significant data retention and handling policies. The bottom of page 3 onto page 4, this is a key provision, the A paragraph. No government entity shall purchase, sell, trade, or transfer personal data without the express written consent of the natural person whom the personal data references, except as otherwise expressly provided. And then you see in Romanet 1 that they may transfer among government agencies. And in Romanet 2, they can use contracted services as long as the contracted service adheres to the provisions of the statute. On page 5, Romanet 3, a government entity may petition to their elected governing person or body for an exemption of up to 2 years. That has to be done in public so that there's clear transparency if anything is being exempted from this clause. And in Romanet 4, it indicates that compliance with HIPAA and FERPA are satisfactory to meet this provision. Bottom of page 5 gets into properties of, or protections of citizens with regard to collected data related to the personal data. So any current or former Wyoming resident may request personal data and be charged a fee for it. In the C paragraph on page 6, they may also object to accuracy, completeness, pertinence, timeliness, and other information related to it. If that is done, then the agency is required to review that information, to investigate whether that's a meritorious objection, and to potentially make a change to it or correct it, to provide the results of that investigation, and potentially denote the results of that investigation, as well as notify the residents as a result of it. The D paragraph on page 7 provides an important aspect of this, which is to the extent that a provision of this article conflicts with another provision of state or federal law, the other provision shall control. This is important. So where there's express language in statute that indicates that we've already preempted and allowed for the sharing or use of data in some other way, that is going to control. And then you see in lines 10 through 13 that nothing shall be construed to abrogate any disclosure of data or public records under the Wyoming Public Records Act. The next section, section 2, gets to data policies by state agencies and subsidiaries of the state. The A paragraph indicates that all government entities shall establish a policy for the collection, access, and retention and security of personal data. The B paragraph indicates that no government entity shall collect or maintain more personal data than is reasonably necessary, and they shall have a specific justification for why they are accumulating that data through adopted policies. The C paragraph talks about the retention, that the default retention period would be 3 years without a written policy identifying justifications for a further retention policy. Archival requirements and data retention policies explicit in statute are justifications for a policy, but that policy has to be written to provide the justification. You see at the bottom of page 8 in the D paragraph, HIPAA and FERPA compliance constitutes a written data collection and retention policy when compliant to it. On page 9, section 3 has that the state chief information officer through ETS and the state archivist shall develop sample policies for use by government entities. And then section 4 has a rolling starting date for this. State level agencies would be required to go active on July 1st, 2027, consistent with section 5. Cities, towns, and counties and public institutions of higher education would go into effect July 1st, 2028. And then other state entities that are not state agencies, counties, cities, et cetera, would go into effect July 1st, 2029. Mr. Chairman, that's the bill. There are 2 amendments. I'd ask that the standing committee amendment be read in at this time.
Will the reading clerk read the amendment?
Senate File 20, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 3, line 4.
Mr. Chairman, I move Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 20 and ask for the body's favorable consideration. Mr. Chairman, these are some tweaks to the language that were suggested. The first is providing further definition within law enforcement that after corrections add the Game and Fish Department when acting within its law enforcement capacity, which is a friendly amendment. On page 6, rather than saying investigate, there was a desire to change that to review in 3 places because it's not any type of a formal investigation, it is a review. And then on page 7, line 2, we will delete and disseminated because marking it in the record is relatively easy and straightforward, but disseminating it proves to be very challenging. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'd answer any questions on the standing committee amendment. If there are none on the amendment, I'd call for the question.
You have heard the motion on the standing committee amendment number 1, Senate File 20. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? Question having been called, all those in favor of standing committee amendment number 1, Senate File 20, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Standing committee amendment number 1, Senate File 20, has been adopted. We are now, well, we have a second amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 be read in.
Senate File 20, Committee of the Whole, Amendment Number 1, page 9, line 11.
We are now on Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, Senate File 20. Senator Anderson, Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to Senate File 20. Ask the body's favorable consideration. Mr. Chairman, this is a technical correction brought by LSO to correct a needed technical inaccuracy. Ask for the body's favorable consideration.
Question having been called, all those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, Senate File 20, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, Senate File 20, has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Is there any discussion on the bill? Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, the question I've got is the government maintains fairly large databases on who owns real property, on what mortgages are, lending against that, and other databases on who owns other kinds of property and is pledged as security for loans. Am I right in thinking that the provisions on page 7, lines 8 and following exempt those from this act, and that those databases continue to be available to the public? Because, Mr. Chairman, some of those are they reveal a fair amount of personal information, but they're essential to the functioning of our financial systems. So that's my question, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Any other questions or discussion? Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Gutall Senator's question, yes, that's covered by that section. There's extensive statutory provisions as well as clear policies in place that allow them to conform to this. And we did work extensively with the county clerks, for example. They've been all through this to make sure that they feel like their workflow is appropriately reflected by this and they're comfortable with it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Question being called, all those in favor of Senator Anderson's motion, that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 20 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Senate File 20 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 27. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 27, leash dogs for tracking black bear, an act relating to game and fish, sponsored by Senator Landon, referred to Committee Number 6, which returned a do pass recommendation, voting aye, Senators Boner, Hicks, Jones, Landon, and Schuler, signed Senator Landon, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Landon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with a due pass recommendation on Senate File 27, leash dogs for tracking black bear. And fellow senators, this little bear bill you heard about in introduction, so I won't go into much of the background. This bill would allow a person to use a leashed blood-trailing dog to track and recover a killed or wounded black bear. The draft bill amends 23.3.109 by adding black bear to the existing language in the subsection, which would allow a person to use one leashed blood-trailing dog to track a wounded or a killed big game animal. Folks, the change was necessary because 23.3.109 currently allows those blood-trailing dogs to be used. That was a bill we passed back in 2019. But it was all about big game animals: antelope, bighorn sheep, deer, elk, moose, or mountain goat. This simply would allow a legally hunted and shot bear to be tracked with a leashed dog. A lot more information on the bill. I'd be glad to answer any questions, but pretty straightforward. Hope you'll support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Landon. Any discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Landon's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 27 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. Senate File 27 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 39. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 39, long-term homeowner tax exemption sunset repeal, an act relating to taxation, sponsored by Senator Crego, referred to Committee Number 3, which returned a due pass recommendation, voting aye. Senators Dockstader, ayed, McEwen, Pappas, voting no. Senator Case, signed Senator McEwen, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator McEwen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 39 do pass. And I will turn this over to Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good senators, it should be noted, and if Senator Crago's out there listening, since he's not able to be here this afternoon to present his bill, he has a lot of friends in this chamber who are very worried about his bill not being heard because he is not here to present it. It was anticipated for him to be absent, and he did ask me to put the bill up today, and as a co-sponsor to present the bill, good senators. So just so you know, it was his wish to have the bill heard today, and hopefully I can handle it for him and do it justice as a co-sponsor here. Good senators, this is a bill that we've passed a couple of years ago now for the long-term homeowners tax exemption sunset appeal or repeal. And so, as you know, we provided tax relief to those Wyoming residents who have lived in Wyoming for 25 years and paid taxes for that period of time and are over the age of 65. And if so, they can receive a 50% property tax reduction on their tax bill in light of that history and their time serving in our state. So that is a sunset repeal. There is a standing committee amendment. Can I have that read in?
Yes, will the reading clerk read the amendment, please?
I think there are two Committee of the Whole amendments. Senate File 39, Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1. Page 1 above line 1.
Thank you,
Not a
Mr.
majority
Chairman. That it is a committee of the whole amendment. I would move committee of the whole amendment number 1 to Senate File 39 and ask for your favorable consideration. Good senators, this committee of the whole amendment simply modernizes the ability to apply for the exemption. So on your first application for the exemption, you fill out the paperwork, you swear that you have been paying taxes for 25 years, you're over 65, meet all of the qualifications of the statute, and then the clerk receives that, processes it, you receive your exemption. This allows for, in follow-up subsequent years, for you to contact the office and let them know that you're still seeking the exemption without the need to submit additional paperwork because they've already verified you've met that qualification. And so it's to streamline the process of government, not requiring the offices to continue to process applications every year, but just a simple notification that you intend to seek that exemption that following year without all the paperwork associated with it, because that standard and criteria has already been established. With that, I'm happy to stand for questions on Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1.
Discussion, Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a good amendment. It's clearly helpful, but I do have a question if we would be able to go a step further, and I don't know the answer to this, where once you've established it, so long as you're the resident that is showing up, it is assumed that you have not de-aged below 65 years of age, for example, and that we would basically just go ahead and accept that they'll be applying for it. Is that possible? Was that talked about, or are there any barriers to that?
Senator Nethercott.
Mr. Chairman, I was not part of the conversations concerning this amendment. I am assuming out of the concerns regarding additional property tax relief, that putting that request on the applicant and that burden on them to seek it out is out of an abundance of caution to make sure we don't take all of the hits on property tax reduction, but I can't be certain. But I'm assuming that that is the wisdom there. And also just to make sure that that individual is continuing to be responsible for that instead of perhaps just letting it go to the address and nobody really understands who's associated with that name and address, or somebody is receiving that exemption as a result of updated paperwork. It kind of requires that continuation of that relationship to prevent an improper receipt of that property tax exemption to perhaps a tenant or new homeowner that has not been updated in the system.
Other questions or discussion? We're on Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, Senate File 39. Question having been called. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, Senate File 39, say aye. Opposed, say no. The Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, Senate File 39, has been adopted. I believe we have another amendment. Senator Guru.
Mr. Chairman, can we have it read in, please?
Very good. The reading clerk will read the amendment.
Senate File 39, Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2, page 1, above line 1.
Now, Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2 and ask for your favorable consideration. Mr. Chairman, what Amendment number 2, Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2 does first is it deletes the amendment that you just passed. But only because if you look at the top, I think right around line 4 on the second amendment, it just says, I'm inserting the word amendments in the catch title so I can have the amendment that I want. So all of the first amendment that you just passed returns below that point. So it's back in plus 3 lines. So if you look on lines 31 through 33, this is the change, and this is the second amendment. And all it does is put a cap on the value of property that is eligible for the 50% exception. And that cap is $3 million. There's no political saying when someone from the other parties committing political suicide don't get in their way. And that's what I'm doing at this moment. Frankly, Mr. President or Mr. Chairman, this affects my county as much as any. I think over 90% of the applications for this program come from my county, my district in particular. And so what this amendment tries to do is simply this, and say, local folks who've been around the state and have had their property values rise and paid taxes for a long time deserve this exemption and deserve this, and I believe in that. But when you get above $3 million, you're starting to get into trophy homes owned by people that have come for different reasons at different times. And so what I'm trying to do is catch all the people that really deserve, seniors that really deserve this tax break, but then ask folks that have a little bit more to pay a little bit more. Look at it another way. Think of it as a backfill program for one county, if you're worried about it. You know, since you don't take one off the table, if you aren't. But that's the general point. I'd ask for your favorable consideration. I can tell you folks, and Mr. Chairman, I can tell you that I've had a lot of folks call me up after this program went into effect and say, hey, I can't even apply for this with a straight face. I'm making enough money to pay the taxes. I want to pay that. And a lot of people didn't. And so this is just recognizing that. The folks, especially up in my neck of the woods, they're proud of living here. They're proud. They're willing to pay for it. They don't think they're overtaxed. And so this is what this contemplates. And I'd ask for your favorable consideration. Like I say, don't get in the way when somebody's committing political suicide. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman.
Discussion on the amendment number 2, Senate File 39. Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, I want to help my friend over there to commit political suicide. But I recall the conversations, member of the bodies that we had out here, and I think it was one of our colleagues from Park County when we debated the original bill here was, the purpose was those folks, particularly at that age in life that are living on fixed income and they saw their property taxes go up and up and up. It was really trying to find a remedy for those folks, and consequently, we give that to all of them. And so if that's what we've done, that's fine. I think this brings it back to at least the earlier debate we had here was to try to address that issue for those folks on fixed income and those seniors that don't have the ability to pay those property taxes. I know my colleague from Natrona County probably has a different view on this, but originally that was the debate we had here on the floor. Was to get to those people that have been in their homes for a long time, they're at that stage of life where they're living on fixed income, and not have them suffer from these escalating property taxes. I think this fully meets the intent with the original discussion that we had out here, so on and for the amendment.
Thank you, Senator Hicks. Senator Ide.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, with the way that inflation is going and the way it looks like it's going in the future, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, a $30,000 house is now $300,000. And, you know, how long it's going to take for us to go from, you know, a $300,000 house to a $3 million house, you know, we can speculate, but I'm on and against this amendment. I think it kind of, we're already kind of setting a separate class of out in this bill in the first place, and now we're dividing it again to another set of classes, sort of a tax the rich kind of a situation here. So I'm on and against the amendment. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Ide. Senator Kolb.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and for the amendment. I'd like to help my compadre off the cliff if I could. But I think it's the right thing to do. You know, I'll just say that we're probably a long way from getting to an average house being $3 million. And we can have a conversation when it comes to that point. But I think the issue that I have is you know, you're out there going door to door and you run across somebody in a fixed thing. I mean, truly somebody who's just kind of, you know, a little older, in the 80s, and they're living a life, trying to make it by with their retirement, which I think we haven't talked about the inflation, which is eating away their value of their money. So I think this goes a long way to put the money back in the pockets that we're trying to really affect. And those are those people that are least able to pay for their property taxes. They've been here a long time. So on and for it. And I thank my colleague for having the forethought to bringing this up, because it is the right thing to do.
Thank you, Senator Cole. Other discussion? Committee of the Whole, amendment number, question having been called. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole amendment number 2, Senate File 39, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. No. The Committee of the Whole amendment number 2, Senate File 39, has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Is there any discussion on the bill? Senator French.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I fully support this. These folks that are in their senior years and have been here 25 years, many of them 50 years, paying property tax, they're the ones that help build our schools, help pay for our fire halls, our cemetery districts, you name it. Those are the folks that really put into it. And like the good senator said, now they're in their elder years and they're on fixed incomes. They can really use this break. So hopefully everybody will vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator French. Senator Case.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I live in the same house that I came home from the hospital in. It's been in my family for quite a few years. Before that, I've been the owner for a lot longer than 25 years. I happen to be of an advanced age, and I'd like to declare a conflict on this bill.
Thank you very much, Senator Case. Other discussion? Sensing no other discussion, you ready for the question? Question having been called, all those in favor? Question being called, all those in favor of Senator McEwen's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 39 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Senate File 39 has been passed in the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 43. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 43, Conservation District Supervisor Contracting, an act relating to conservation districts, sponsored by Senator Hicks, referred to Committee Number 6, which returned a do pass recommendation. Voting aye, Senators Boner, Hicks, Jones, Landon, and Schuler. Signed, Senator Landon, Chairman.
Thank you. Having heard the reading of the bill, what is your pleasure, Senator Landon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with a do pass recommendation on Senate File 43, Conservation District Supervisor Contracting. And for an explanation of the bill, I would ask that you call on Senator Hicks.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman and members of the body, this is the shortest bill that you're going to see this entire session. It's one sentence, and it goes into on page 1, line 9, and it repeals 1116-123B. So what the repealer does is it says that district supervisors, before they can enter into any contract, has to have at least that amount of money in the bank account. That was part of the original conservation district law that was adopted in 1941. And at that time, it made a little bit of sense because they didn't have any revenue anyway. Districts were set up to facilitate the ability for the federal government to come in and work with farmers and ranchers on soil and water conservation projects. In 1990, the legislature gave those 34 districts the authority to go to the voters and petition for a ballot initiative for a 1 mill levy. You have 34 districts out there. Some of those are funded through their counties, through the county direct. Some of them have mill levies. But since that time, their mission has certainly increased. You all know who they are. They run on the same ballot as you do through the general election. They're working all over the state of Wyoming. We could have called this as keep our special districts legal. What we found out through a process of many of these districts, I mean, even to buy a pickup, some of them are very limited. Some of them are running on, $50,000, $60,000 a year budgets, and some of them are running on $4 or $5 million. A lot of that's grant money. But so they can do their job. This just keeps them, so if they need to go borrow money to finance a pickup or specialized equipment like no-till drills or masticators or fertilizer spreaders or buildings or lots to be able to fill those missions, this just allows them the opportunity to go finance that. Now they have the mechanism to finance that. Before they didn't. I'd ask for your favorable consideration when I vote on this and just let's clean up the statutes.
Thank you, Senator Hicks. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing no further discussion, are you ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Landon's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 39 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Yes, sir. I misspoke. It's Senate File 43. Thank you. So Senate File 43, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Senate File 43 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 88. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 88, Sex Offenders, Residents Near Child Care Facilities, an act relating to crimes and offenses, sponsored by Senator Salazar, referred to Committee Number 1, which returned a recommendation of do pass as amended. Voting aye, Senators Craigo, Crum, Hicks, Kolb, and Olson. Signed, Senator Olson, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Olson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, that it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 88 do pass. There is a standing committee amendment. I ask that that be read in at this time.
The reading clerk will read the amendment.
Senate File 88, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 3, line 10.
Mr. Chairman, I will move the adoption of Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 88. And folks, this amendment is just a cleanup amendment. I'm happy to discuss it further in detail of how it affects the bill, but it is just a cleanup amendment. I'd ask for your favorable consideration of the amendment.
Very good. You have heard the reading. You have heard the motion on the Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 of Senate File 88. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? Question having been called, all those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 88, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 of Senate File 88 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Is there any discussion on the bill?
Sorry,
Senator Olson.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn over the explanation of the bill to the Senate sponsors, the Chairman of Appropriations.
Very good. Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies, honorable members, as I said a couple days ago when this was first introduced, it's a relatively simple bill. I was somewhat surprised that this actually still occurs. I was brought aware of this by a constituent of mine. So what this bill simply does, it says no person who is 18 years of age or older who is required to register as a sex offender shall reside within 1,000 feet of the property where a child care facility is located, period. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Senator Salazar. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing no discussion, are you ready for the question? Senator Brennan.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question just on the practicability of like how this would work in Wyoming statute 144101 A little Romanet VI. That is where we define child care facilities. If we look at that list of things where we have children's institutions, child placing agencies, whether for permanent or temporary placement, foster homes not supervised by the state, group daycare, detention home. Then we have public or private receiving homes, correctional schools, on down, just for the practicability. I know that sometimes child daycares are ran within homes, within neighborhoods. How does this affect then the ability for somebody who is on this list to move into a neighborhood? And what about like small communities that are, you know, just blocks long? And so how would that work?
Thank you, Senator Brennan. Other questions? Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So along those same lines, so say there is already a sex offender that lives in a neighborhood, is a current resident in that neighborhood, has owned that house for a long time, and someone 2 doors down decides to open up a daycare in their home. So is this saying that that sex offender is going to have to sell their home and move? So that's just a question that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pearson. Senator Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll tackle the second question first. That's addressed in the bill. There is a provision in the bill that says that if the offender is living in the house prior to the enactment date of the bill, which is July 1st, 2026, then it doesn't apply to that offender. So there is a safeguard in place for that type of scenario. As to the second question, or as to the first question from the good Chairman of Health and Labor, you know, this is a question that your Judiciary Committee also wrestled with. It's a policy decision that this body has to make. You're going to have to decide, because the way this bill is drafted is, yes, it could be a home daycare, and if it's any pecuniary exchange, even if it has less than 3 children, it is recognized in this bill, even if the department that oversees family services doesn't recognize it as a care facility. That last part of the bill that we did that technical correction on makes sure that if there's any pecuniary, any monetary exchange, even if it's less than 3 kids, it's covered within this bill. So you have to make a policy decision whether you want sex offenders who are required to register in the state of Wyoming living next to a daycare facility. And we wrestled with that question, and your Judiciary Committee agreed with the sponsor of this bill and said this is a place where we're going to take a stance. And we believe that if the law says that a sex offender should not live within 1,000 feet of a school, then they shouldn't live within 1,000 feet of a daycare. And that's our position. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Olson. Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the challenges that I see, though, in the specific language and going to that Romanet 6 in statute is that a lot of these entities, you don't even know that they're there. With a school, you know they're there. And with many daycare facilities, they're they're for pay, they're very easy to spot, you can read the signs, so as an individual that might be looking for a place to live that happens to be on one of these lists, you could tell, you would know, all right, and I can draw on the map, I could look it up, do a Google search, I shouldn't say that word, do a search on the internet, and I can figure it out. But, you know, a non-sanctioned home placement, foster care, I don't know how you find that out. I don't think there is a way to find that out. There shouldn't be a way, candidly, to find that out, because it's really none of your business to know where a foster child is living. There are other provisions, the small providers that were met by the amendment. So you're taking care of 3 children or 2 children, and you're receiving some financial pay for it. We put that in place in statute several years ago. I don't know whose business it is that I'm running or operating that facility. It certainly isn't something that I would publicly notice necessarily, because I'm not really hanging out a shingle, hey, I've got one more spot. So I think we're struggling to make it feasible with the way that it's currently structured. I mean, it's obviously very easy and straightforward to do it for a large daycare business, but I guess, was there discussion about these edge cases where I just don't know how somebody would ever know, and then they would move in, they'd buy their home, whatever the case may be, and somebody would say, oh, didn't you know Betty across the street has a foster child? You need to sell your home or you're in violation of law. I don't know how we work around that. And I mean, maybe it's just being a little bit more selective and carving it out, but I don't know if that was discussed, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about how that conversation went.
Thank you, Senator Rothfuss. Senator Jones.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question also. Is there anything implied by this for real estate agents? How would we know? Hopefully, I mean, we wouldn't know if we're working with a sex offender or the same problem is in-home daycares or anything like that. I'm just wondering if there is any implied responsibility in this bill for the folks that sell real estate.
Thank you, Senator Jones. Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think to the good senator's point, there wasn't discussion. I'm certainly willing to make this bill better. But as I think everyone knows, the crux of this is, why would you have or allow a sex offender to be so close to the very thing that is cherished so mostly by us as a temptation? And so that, you understand the motivation of what we're trying to do. As far as the other question with regard to the real estate, I don't believe there's any intent as far as realtors go. But I will say this, again, this is a constituent bill of mine. I believe in it. I'm more than willing to carve out a more specific path to it, but I think everyone here knows what the true intent of this bill is. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Salazar. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Senator Nethercott?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just some, I mean, everybody knows where the sex offender is because they're on the registry. You can Google them, find their picture, their address, their vehicles. It's that level of concern. So, I mean, one piece is, why is a child care center choosing to put a child care facility, near the sex offender's address? I mean, that's a piece to consider as well. Otherwise, you have a sex offender in your neighborhood, regardless of the offense, you decide you're going to start a daycare facility, and you go get approval just so you can force them to sell their property, and that's kind of a taking, right? I mean, I think it triggers more concerns than perhaps we currently identify with this what seems to be a very common sense concern of prohibiting sex offenders near childcare centers, and I agree that that is a prudent and reasonable concern, and that prohibition should exist. But the reason why it's probably not currently in statute is as a result of the mobility of childcare facilities, which I can have a home daycare very quickly, with just filing an application and agreeing to take in 3 kids, right? 2 of which may be my own. And so I think its ability to be managed properly is particularly difficult. So I just question whether or not there isn't a way to grandfather in current people living in their homes and for a period of time with proper protections and notifications, recognizing that those individuals are already on the registry and are noticed in that way, that perhaps they would be allowed to stay in the homes that they have. Because finding housing, I think, for a lot of these individuals can be challenging, again, regardless of the underlying crime. And so I want to be very pragmatic about this, that perhaps there could be a process in play through your local sheriff's office who's responsible for maintaining that registry to provide notification to the daycare, to those children that attend that daycare, and that there's an exception for daycares that move in next door to that individual's residence that they may have had for 20 years without concern, right? So what we don't want to do in society is start having these individuals be transient. That's very dangerous, because then they are harder to account for, right? And that's when the criminal activity may continue. So preventing transient behavior or transient circumstances for these individuals, allowing them to have stability and maintain a location that everybody knows about, right, provides some of those protections. So just there's some policy considerations for everyone's protection, everyone's notification. That may be more pragmatic.
Thank you, Madam Majority Floor Leader. Senator Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm not going to address everything from the good majority floor leader, but I will address the mobility piece, the last piece that she discussed. So the bill has 2 provisions to it that would be applicable to this idea of mobility. First, the one I already mentioned, which is if the registered offender's residence was established before July 1st, 2026, then this bill doesn't apply to them. But there's another piece to that provision. Before the date when this childcare facility was established at the location is the other piece to that provision. So if an offender is residing and then daycare moves in, then the provision doesn't apply to that offender. So we did wrestle with that idea, and we felt that the bill does cover that. So that's not going to cover perfectly the mobility piece, but you're not going to have the situation where a daycare is going to move in or a home daycare is going to spring up next to an offender and the offender then have to sell their home and move. The bill already contemplates that and says, no, this bill would not apply to that offender in that scenario.
Thank you, Senator Olson. Senator Landon.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I appreciate the bringer of the bill and totally get it. This has come around several times in the last few years, and I apologize for not getting this down a little bit better, but I wonder if there aren't certain levels of these offenses that, if that was considered, because quite honestly, some of our folks have to register in the sex offender registry for crimes that might have nothing to do or be a threat to a facility like this. I'm just wondering if there aren't levels of this registry that, if that was even considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Landon. Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer the good question of the chairman, as far as the levels, no, it was not. However, obviously, I'm more than open to putting a specific level for this specific bill. I'm open to that. So, and if we get this out, I'll work with the good chairman and put something in.
Thank you, Senator Salazar. Senator Rothfuss.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to follow up on the logistics aspect of this and trying to think through how it would play out. How would an individual get a definitive okay? Or you can't live there? Who would they check in with, and how would they find out that it was okay for them to move into a place? And if there ended up being a circumstance where they were wrong, who would even know that, or how would that action be taken? And Mr. Chairman, I think somehow we need more clarity, and I appreciate the good sponsor suggesting that he was willing to look at it, but I don't see how, without having an agency or an entity basically creating a locational database of all of the registered child care facilities, and maybe that's an opt-in, and maybe we do that through family services or something. But there just needs to be a way that an individual can look and definitively find out, no, this is an okay place for me to live, or this isn't an okay place for me to live, instead of just this prohibition. Because I appreciate the intentions, I support the intent, I support the good intentions of this bill, but good intentions aren't enough. It has to be practical and realizable, and I don't see it yet. So, what ideas do we have? And maybe we have to work on this for second reading, but are there any ideas on how we could have some type of definitive registry or an authority where, as somebody is relocating, they could check to see whether it's clear for them to live there or not? Because the idea that the onus would be on them to exhaustively search to find out if there was a 3-person daycare that was entirely unregistered with the state, or a foster home that just appeared last week. I mean, the foster child could have actually shown up literally last night, and I'm buying the home today, and I'm in violation at that point in time. So, ideas on what standards should we use so that this is logistically realizable.
Thank you, Senator Rothfuss. Any other discussion on the bill? Are you ready for the question? Sensing you're ready for the question, all those in favor of Senator Olson's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 88 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Senate File 88 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 67. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 67, Wyoming State Guard Amendments, an act relating to the Wyoming State Guard, sponsored by Senator Larson. The bill was referred to Committee Number 1, which returned a do pass recommendation. Voting aye, Senators Driscoll, French, Guru, Larson, and Salazar, signed Chairman Salazar. The bill was referred to Committee Number 1. Voting aye, Senators Crago, Crum, Hicks, Olson. Voting no, Senator Kolb, signed Senator Olson, Chairman. Then we referred to Committee Number 2. Voting aye, Senators Driscoll, French, Guru, Larson, and Salazar, signed Senator Salazar, Chairman.
Thank you. You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Olson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report that it do so with the do pass recommendation that Senate File 67 do pass. There is a standing committee amendment, so I have that read in now.
Reading of the standing committee amendment.
Senate File 67, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 1, line 14.
And I will move Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 67 and do ask for your favorable consideration. I will turn over the explanation of the bill to the bill sponsor, and the amendment, maybe you can cover, because it just takes portions of the bill out that he's probably going to talk about are unnecessary for the bill, so it'll just make more sense if he discusses it.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Olson. Senator Larson?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is kind of an old bill that I keep bringing, but I think it's very vital. It does have strong support from our Major General and his staff in working on the draft. The Wyoming State Guard has been authorized in law for over a century, but has never been organized. If organized, it would be a separate branch of the organized state militia, independent of the National Guard, a state military force with no federal obligations, commanded by the governor through the adjutant general. Its primary purpose would be to provide support and backup to the state's National Guard in performance of the state missions, especially if the National Guard is activated into Title X federal services and deployed out of the state. Senate File 67 has very limited scope. It amends our existing state guard statutes to align with current federal law, under which since 1983, the federal government exercises no oversight or offers no financial support. These amendments will streamline the process of organizing our state guard should a governor choose to do so. This bill does not call for the organization of the state guard at this time, nor does it obligate any funds or resources for that purpose. It requests that the appropriation of grand total of $25,000 over the next 2 years is to defray travel and administrative costs of a governor-appointed council of defense. This council is called for by existing statutes to address issues of size, recruitment, organizational structure, equipment, mission for the Wyoming State Guard prior to any decision to proceed with the organization. I'm going to go to the bill real quick. The standing commit, well, let's just start on page 2. It describes where we're taking out the federal reference to the federal government and having to get kind of their permission, especially from the Secretary of Defense. So it takes that part out. And then we go on to page 3. It describes a little bit about the State Council of Defense. And what this standing committee amendment does is it deletes quite a bit of the portions that were being making the bill a little bit more confusing than it should be. So on page 3, it takes out from line 14 to line 23. And if you turn it over on page 4, it takes out, deletes everything from line 2 to line 19. So hopefully that makes the bill a little bit less confusing. And I don't know if we can vote on that right now. Oh, yeah, it's been moved already.
Very good. You've heard the motion on the Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, Senate File 67. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? Question having been called, all those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, Senate File 67, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. No. Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, Senate File 67 has been adopted. We're moving on. We do have a Committee of the Whole amendment. Senator Larson, we're going to have that read in. The reading clerk, read the amendment, please.
Senate File 67, Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1, page 2, line 12.
Very good, Senator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, I move Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 67 and ask for your favorable consideration. During discussion with the committee, there was there was reference to that the state guard, if we're gonna help with the National Guard, we ought to reference what things the National Guard can do. And the current proposed bill I have did not state that. So with the help of the good committee members, we came up with some new wording. So on page 2, line 12, you would delete to suppress insurrection or to repel invasion. And so the new wording, I think you all might have, it would say, to insert, the governor deems necessary to preserve the public peace and to execute the laws of the state. Tumult, riot, mob or invasion, to respond to either natural or man-made emergencies within the state, to support national wildland fire response, or to perform other duties as the governor may require. So we were just matching what the National Guard could do.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Larson. You have heard the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? Question having been called, all those in favor of the Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, say aye. All those opposed, say no. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, Senate File 67, has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Is there any discussion on the bill? Senator Larson, or Landon, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just real quickly, I know we're trying to finish up. This, I like the concept. I'm just wondering if there was any concern over things like equipment, vehicles. If this has nothing to do with the federal government, what kind of appropriations are we going to be looking at? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Landon. Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to admit that I'm a little confused by this bill. So now in the state of Wyoming, we're going to have a Wyoming National Guard and a Wyoming State Guard, or the National Guard is being moved to the State Guard, or I'm just confused. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pearson. Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe I could try to help a little bit. So actually, around 22 to 23 states have these things called a state guard or something similar. It is separate from the National Guard. It usually falls under their military department. But this is something that is controlled completely by the state and is funded, to my colleague from Casper's point, I think, is funded by the state. The reason why I've signed on this concept is I do think that there could be some efficiencies in terms of how much you're paying these folks, say go fight a fire or do the stateside duty that we all associate with the National Guard, filling sandbags, flood control, fire control. The reality is that they may be working alongside somebody who's a volunteer at their local fire department. Yet we're paying these state guard members as if their pay as if they, which they've earned being very technical, highly skilled technicians, as maybe a crew chief on a helicopter or somebody who operates an artillery system. I think that there's an opportunity potentially for some cost savings here as we look into this, because the equipment needs are probably not that significant. You're looking at doing the state duty, firefighting, flood control, that sort of thing. That's something that these state guards do throughout the nation. So hopefully that gives a little bit more context as to the different missions. It's 100% state mission, 100% state funding. However, we're not pretending to be active duty capable military force either. It'd be for that state level duty.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Boner. Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question. Can't the governor do this already? Is that yes, no? And then does anyone have a position that we've heard that, I don't know, from the governor's office, I mean, if I can say that here, on where that's at for doing this, because it would be, in this case, the governor's choice. So I'd just like to know more about that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Kolb. Senator Hutchings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think if we all look at our Wyoming Constitution's Article 17 authorizes a state militia. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hutchings. Senator Crum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is on page 4, lines 17 and 18, and it talks about age of eligibility. Why not, it says 25 to 65, why not 18 upwards as long as you meet the qualifications? No upper end as long as you can perform the duties of delivering sandbags and doing those type of things. Why not 18 to up to qualification?
Thank you, Senator Crum. Senator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, I'll address the age thing that was mentioned from our good senator. That was deleted from the bill with the standing committee amendment, and that's the main reason we didn't want to deal with that part. The other question was, you know what, if we're going to need equipment and all that, and we didn't want to discuss that part either. We're in the statutes, it says the governor can set up a council of defense, and I think that is the major thing we should be looking at right now. Let him do that. We'll gather the information of what this entity would really do. You know, I don't know who he'll put on there. Hopefully we can spread it out amongst the state. You know, maybe we'd get a sheriff on there and that type, but hopefully that answers the questions.
Thank you, Senator Larson. Any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? Oh, Senator Boner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as whether the governor can do that now, maybe he could, maybe he couldn't. I think there's things in the bill that say require coordination with the Secretary of Defense that just aren't relevant for an actual state guard. So the bill could be helpful in that regard, and also just recognizing that there's an appropriation here too to actually do the work. So clearly, you know, we're co-equal branches of government. We don't always, you know, sit around asking what the chief executive may do or may not do. This is the emphasis of the bill, and if we pass the bill, I think we'll probably have the beginnings of one of these units begin to take place. So.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Boner. Any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? Sensing that you're ready for the question, all those in favor of Senator Olson's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with a recommendation that Senate File 67 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Senate File 67 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 107. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 107, Motor Vehicle Registration and Plate Issuance System, an act relating to motor vehicles, sponsored by Senator Nethercott, referred to Committee Number 8, which returned a due pass recommendation. Voting aye, Senators Anderson, Barlow, Cooper, Kolb, and Pappas. Signed, Senator Pappas, Chairman.
Thank you very much. You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Pappas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, that it do so with a favorable recommendation on Senate File 104, Motor Vehicle Registration and Plate Issuance System. And for a good account on this bill, I ask you to call on the good senator in the back of the room, Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hutchings.
I do believe the number on the bill that was called out was Senate File 44, and the title was the correct title. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hutchings.
I may have misread the line, I'm sorry. I'll redo it again.
Please do.
Yes, when the committee of the whole rises to report, I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, that it do so with favorable recommendation on Senate File 107, motor vehicle registration and plate issuance system, and ask you to call on Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Senator Pappas. Majority Floor Leader Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You may recall that it's a warning that the Senate starts its bloopers highlights after 5 p.m. We are very accustomed to our banker's hours, and we struggle when we are not maintaining them. Good senators, just for your knowledge, we will stop at 46. So 46, but we're not quite there yet. So before we get there, I will present to you Senate File 107, Motor Vehicle Registration and Plate Issuance System. As you heard, there was a full committee vote from the Transportation Committee. You should also know that this bill is fully supported by all of your county treasurers, in addition to our YDOT. So everyone that would be, including our ETS as well, IT, YDOT, all the county treasurers are in support of this bill and are excited to move it forward. There is no appropriation with this bill draft, and its effective date is July 1st of 2028. What the bill does is it forces everybody to come together, which they're already doing, but they do support a bill draft, so it does need to happen in statute, that they have one consolidated software system that allows all the county treasurers to communicate with the state and vice versa in issuing of vehicle registration and license plates. And this would provide a significant efficiency of resource to our constituents, to our local governments, and to the state in identifying, in facilitating registrations and license plates. They're currently underway in those negotiations. In fact, 6 counties already have the system that they more than likely, beyond a reasonable doubt, will move forward with. Provides significant advantages to the state. That particular system does. Allows multiple efficiencies from e-titling of the vehicles to the allocation of the appropriate taxes that need to be attributed both to local governments and the state. And so I think everybody's pretty excited about this bill. The bill really is in section 1 where we're creating a new statute, 31-236, which is the motor vehicle, excuse me, registration and license plate issuance systems, which is a statewide electronic motor vehicle registration and license plate issuance system. That's the bill. It allows the department, which is YDOT, to collect a fee for the usage of the system, which is $5, which will allow for the maintenance of the system. They anticipate that will bring in about $5 million annually, which is a good revenue generator to maintain the technical requirements associated with the system, prevent any kind of hacking, maintain its usage, all of the IT technical requirements associated with maintaining that over time. So they're very comfortable with that ability to raise the fee. Again, there's no appropriation because the amount of the system is still being likely identified and negotiated, and so that's why the effective date is July 1st, 2028. Because of 6 counties already having the system in place, it's anticipated that that amount for such a system will be quite reasonable, and nothing that we would be too concerned about. Current estimates are approximately, and this is estimates, so don't hold me to it, about 8 million. But what that would be is for every county treasurer to have the system, working with the state, allowing for the payments of all those fees and taxes. So a pretty streamlined process, actually, that will likely save money. The rest of the bill draft is just updating current statute to acknowledge that the reporting and the record keeping that are currently required for registration and license plates acknowledges that there's this statewide system in place. Again, everyone's on board. We heard no negative comments, and hopefully we can help move our state in this area into the modern age and provide an efficiency of utilization. Their current software system is on the edge of collapse, and so this really isn't a choice, but is something that must be done, and they're working towards that end. So with that, I'd ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Majority Floor Leader. You've heard the explanation of the bill. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Are you ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator Pappas's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 107 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Senate File 107 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 44. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 44, Gambling Amendments, an act relating to crimes and offenses, sponsored by Management Council, referred to Committee Number 3, which returned a do-pass recommendation. Voting aye, Senators Case, Dockstader, Ide, McEwen, and Pappas. Signed, Senator McEwen, Chairman.
Thank you very much. You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator McEwen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 44 do pass. And to cover this, I will turn it over to Senator Kolb.
Thank you, Senator McEwen. Senator McColl.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill, Senate File 44, is the accumulation of work that was done during the interim. I probably would like to call this, we're trying to plug as many loopholes as we can, Bill, with gambling amendments and defining, amending exceptions to the offense of gambling. There's many sections of this that was worked through with all the Gaming Commission, the actual people that are involved with gaming activities, and coming up with language that actually fixed a lot of problems for our prosecutors to prosecute. There was just some things that were put in there that probably weren't the best definitions in this current statutes. So this goes a long way to getting, I guess, the holes that were identified plugged. Point out to a few of them, and so just to be clear, there are exceptions for private card games for folks that are, at your house during Thanksgiving. That was never the intent, never has been the intent to capture those groups of people, because that's not fitting the definition of what gambling is according to the current statutes. And it starts off, I just go some the really big ones. Oddly enough, on page 3, under 9, profit simply now means financial gain. Instead of trying to do gymnastics to explain it, it was found out that those a choice of words just led to more ways people thought, well, they were doing the right thing when they were actually commencing a game of profit, where there was buy-in from, say, if you went into a card game and there was you had to pay some sort of entry fee, then you had to pay a fee at the table to the dealer. Those kind of things are going on. And that was really the largest thing that was trying to be dealt with in this bill, because frankly, it's becoming a big deal. It's so bad that a lot of our good residents of our state don't understand what they were doing was technically illegal within the state. And our prosecutors were hesitant on prosecuting. So that was the reason for these definition changes. And the other one was, if you look at the really large one, it was the bona fide social relationship. Now, I got to tell you, that's a loophole you could drive a truck through, because it came down to the point where they were saying, well, I've got a relationship because I'm like to gamble. Well, that wasn't the intent of trying to regulate this and stop these Vegas-style card games, frankly, in the state of Wyoming, which we don't have an exception for. So a bona fide social relationship has been really pared down to, it shall not include a social relationship which has arisen for the purpose of gambling, which it seems kind of simple, but we worked on this, and I think we got a good product here. I'll leave it at that as an explanation for this bill. It tries to encompass a lot of issues, and I'll stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Cole. You've heard the explanation of the bill. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Are you ready for the question? Sensing you're ready for the question, all those in favor of Senator McEwen's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 44 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. Senate File 44 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 46. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 46, Skill-Based Amusement Games, Licensed Liquor Establishments, an act related to gaming, sponsored by Management Council, referred to Committee Number 3, which returned a do-pass recommendation. Voting aye, Senators Case, Dockstader, and Ide. Voting no, Senator Pappas. Conflict, Senator McEwen. Signed, Senator McEwen, Chairman.
Thank you. You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator McEwen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 46 do pass. And with that, I'll turn that also over to Senator Cole.
Thank you, Senator McEwen. Senator Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you have the amendment read in at this point?
The reading clerk will read the amendment.
Senate File 46, Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1, corrected copy, page 1, line 8.
Thank you, Senator Cole.
Yeah, I would move Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 46 and ask for your favorable consideration. Mr. Chairman, I would like to probably try to combine these two together, the amendment and this bill. This bill started from the issue, frankly, with the grocery store having skill-based games in the area where the checkout facility is, at the front of the store. It arisen from that, and this came to the task force for gaming's interim topic at the very last meeting. So we put together a bill draft that Management Council sponsored, and that's how we got here. Let me explain, I guess, the situation. So they exploited an issue with liquor law that made the area that sells the packaged liquor basically the entire facility for the purposes of skill-based games. This is a statute that we're currently dealing with. So just to be clear that the Gaming Commission has no authority to change a statute, which is the reason why we're talking about this. So we have a current situation where, and it's in the state of Wyoming, still currently the locations that are doing this, that have, I'll just use the words, they've exploited a legal loophole, I'll just use that word, in our statutes to in fact put skill-based games in the front of grocery stores. It was the opinion of the voted on position that we're not in favor of this, and that's how this bill kind of started. Now, with this, the bill that you have, now I'm going to talk about the bill and the amendment. The amendment was a way to allow it in the packaged liquor store. The current bill, when it was drafted, said they weren't allowed in the packaged liquor store unless you're serving an alcoholic beverage or a malt beverage. And so this was a way of saying, okay, you can put it in the packaged liquor store. However, it has to be shielded from the view from children, people, well, they're not children sometimes, under 21 years old. The issue comes up is, and this is a policy decision for this body. Do we think it's correct to have a barrier about yo-high running around these machines that are very, very attractive? They're designed to attract young people and old people, not deliberately the young people, but it's flashy, it's shiny, We literally had an issue in my town that the children were on these machines playing it. And because they're, I guess the same thing that attracts us, attracts young people. And the question is, do we want children exposed to this type of thing? And it is different than other types of activities. You know, it can be highly addictive. It's certainly not something I think is right to promote to children who see this. And this merely says you have to shield it from view. I mean, personally, I think it's fine to put them in these areas where adults are at. But why is it okay then to have them viewed by children and to look at these things and to be attracted towards them? I mean, it's funny how the same thing that attracts older people attracts younger people. And this is a question, do we think this is okay? As a body, do we agree that we want younger kids exposed to this? I think it's detrimental to the development. And I think we're talking about gambling here. I mean, future gaming. And while it's fine for someone over 21 to do, as our current law states, a divider that I can look over, frankly, and the games are multiple feet above this item, so it's visible all around from every angle. You can go around it and see all these games. I can assure you this is exactly what it is. And so this amendment contemplates them not being in view of anybody under 21 years old, but allows them to be in a packaged liquor store. And this affects all skill games. And they put them in truck stops, they put them in entrances, they put them in places plainly visible to the public, and therein lies the issue. So that's the bill in front of you. That's really how it started, and that's what it's trying to do. And Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Senator Cole. Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, it is getting late and my mental processes don't work as fast, so I have a question here. If what I believe is we shouldn't have these things, whether there's barriers or not, my understanding is I should vote against the amendment because it allows them to continue and to be put in these facilities. Is that right? Or is the amendment strictly relating to the barriers?
Thank you, Senator Scott. Senator Cole.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. The policy decision is about, do you want them visible to children under 21? And that's with the amendment that says they're going to be allowed within a packaged liquor space. So you have where the packaged liquor is sold, and to put them in that area as long as they're shielded. That's the amendment. The original bill said they're not allowed within an establishment that has a liquor license unless you're selling said alcoholic beverages. If you have a bar, basically you're selling beer and spirits. So they'd be allowed in that area. So this is kind of a hybrid, to answer the question from the good senator from, I guess I forget the terminology we always use there, Senator, for your area, Bates Creek. I'll get it eventually. Like it is getting late, but that's what it does. So if you support the amendment, you're allowing them to go into a packaged liquor store as long as they're shielded. If you don't support the amendment, they're out of the packaged liquor area, which is the footprint of said like grocery stores, because they don't sell beverages there. That's the difference. So is that clear? Okay. Well, I realize it's kind of confusing and something that we've worked on, and of course I'm familiar, and I'll do my best to explain it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Kolb. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, there are two parts to this amendment, and it could be divided if somebody wanted to. So the first part is allowing that, is only allowing the machines to be where the alcohol is sold. The problem we had in the past was they were putting it by the registers, right? And so all the kids could see it. So the first part of this amendment, on lines, I guess it would be 7 through 12, allows them to put it in an area where only, packaged liquors are only located in which kids won't be there because it's a packaged liquor area. The second part of it is in the last line, line 18, 17 and 18, with the addition of or view. So that's a different thing. I mean, it could be separate than just allowing it, but now we're taking away the view, and I understand the reason for it, as the good senator mentioned, but it will come at a cost. Now, all these people have to build walls or whatever. That's a policy decision we'll have to make, whether we want to allow that or not. But there are actually two parts to this. Just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that.
Thank you, Senator Pappas. Senator Landon.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And yes, I agree with the sponsor. It is a little confusing tonight. But regarding the amendment, because I think we are on the amendment, if I'm correct on that. So I have to say that it feels a little punitive to me. I'm wondering why we couldn't just require the ownership of that establishment to just tell the kids they can't be on the machine. You know, forcing a retail, any kind of outlet that has these to put a box around them, then nobody knows they're there. I'm not crazy about more and more machines in all of our places, but this just seems a little bit overboard to me. I could use a little bit more to get there. I mean, was there any conversation about, hey, let's just make sure that owners know we're going to take the machines away if we ever find a kid on one, type of thing? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Landon. Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to say thank you to everyone that took up this issue, because I know I've taken it up a couple times and I've whiffed on all of them, and I appreciate their work. But I too have a question about unintended consequences in the amendment. So I need the help too, I think, that some of the others are expressing. And if a person owned a bar and they had a skill game in the bar, like a lot of them do, and then before a certain time of night, they allow kids in, they have a restaurant bar, and children are allowed. That's part of the law. So if this amendment goes into play, what does that bar owner have to do? I know what we're going after is a grocery store, but this seems to me that this has an unintended consequence that's going to affect everyone that has a skill game everywhere. And I just want to know, was that the intent, or am I missing something? Thank you.
I've got Senator Jones, and then I'll come back to you.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a couple questions. First of all, if a child is going in the liquor store, they're with their parent, so what's the difference between them being with their parent and looking at alcohol, or being with their parent and looking at a skills game? I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. If they should be with parental supervision, and we let them go in with their parent, they can see alcohol, which they are not allowed to have until they're 21, then they can also see a skills game that they aren't allowed to play if they're 21.
Thank you very much. Senator Kolb, would you like to address those? We also have another question.
I'll try to do my best, Mr. Chairman. Just to answer the last question is, alcohol is not gambling. First off, it's not banned by the Constitution of the state of Wyoming. So it is a different product. So the analogy of comparing a legal thing to something that we have very special statutes drawn around frankly to make it legal in the state of Wyoming, it's a bit of apples and oranges. Now, I go back to say this is a policy question. Yes, it's a policy question about children viewing this. The policy question is, do you think it's right that children view this? Now, if you do, that's fine. That's why it's here in front of us as an amendment. You know, you voted up, you voted down. The issue is that if we're going to give an exception for packaged liquor stores to put these things back in there again, you know, what else would there be? And the issue comes up is that we have a barrier problem. That's the issue. It's not being punitive to anybody. It's saying you put these, frankly, highly addictive products up that children can view in the state of Wyoming, that do we think that's a good thing to do or not? I mean, yeah, you can make, you know, your parents are with them, but we had people in this one particular instance that they set their kid playing the machine. I mean, you know, I could say I'm not trying to make it a, you know, some sort of moral thing here. It's about what our opinion is, what we expose our kids to. I mean, I'll, you know, as the story goes, vote it up, vote it down. The question is, we're going to give them an exception. This was a way out to say, okay, then have it shielded. And I assure you, there's other states that do exactly that. We are not the first one I'm not the first one to propose this. Other states have areas, rooms that you actually go into if you want to game. It's a multiple issue here. We've got barriers that are willfully inadequate. They're too short. They can see the games. The games are very, very tall. And that's part of the barrier issue. I think maybe we could work on that possibly and maybe, you know, make it on 3 sides, but that's the issue here. Is do we want children seeing this and being exposed to this? It is not buying alcohol. It's not cigarettes. It is gambling. And do we want our kids to grow up seeing that? And I'm not worried about so much the kids who are 20 years old. I'm talking about little kids. And they get attracted to these things. And that's why this amendment's in front of the body. I think, you know, vote your conscience. I'm all right with that. That's why I brought this amendment. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Cole. Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank the bringer of the amendment. I don't want to see children in a grocery store looking at gambling machines. And I believe that this amendment does that, prevents that from happening. When this occurred to my family in Riverton, I was shocked. I didn't know that they were allowed to do that. When I was in line buying my groceries, I looked around to see if other people were looking at it. They were, with their young kids. This isn't, to me, this is not appropriate in a grocery store, having gambling machines where children checking out simply because they're with their families buying some groceries have to have that put in front of them.
Thank you, Senator Salazar. Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, question having been called, all those in favor of the Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 for Senate File 46, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. We'll take a standing vote. All those in favor, please say aye, or stand, sorry. That was 13. All those opposed, please stand. So the chairman being in the position of deciding the tie, I will vote in favor of the amendment. So, on Committee of the Whole Amendment, the Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 on Senate File 46 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Is there any discussion on the bill? Seeing no discussion on the, Senator Grew.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Once again, on and against. Once again, I'm in complete agreement with this whole grocery store deal. I am. And I understand, and believe me, liquor laws are like campaign finance laws. Like throw a bucket of water across a cement slab, and it's gonna find all the creases and it's gonna dribble down. I get that, believe me, I know. But here's the part I'm kind of troubled about. There's a section in the bill that says, we're now gonna take this away. Going forward, when you reapply, you're gonna lose something. This is gonna be taken away. As a business person, Mr. Chairman, I'm deeply troubled by that. Yes, I'm deeply troubled by kids gaming, but I am more troubled by the government telling me that they're gonna take something away that they gave me a legal right to do. Change it, that's fine, work on it, can't happen again going forward, grandfather, that's where that word came from in these statutes. But as a business person, I've got a problem. That's a slippery slope I don't want to start down. And so that's why I'm on and against. I'd like to see this go back through the whole process with this new committee that we've just formed, have them really work through this. But right now, I'm a no, not ready. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Seeing no further discussion, are you ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Senator McEwen's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 46 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Not being able to make that call from here, we need to move into a standing vote. All those in favor, please stand. All those, 15. All those opposed, please rise. Senate File 46 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration, it looks like the desk is clear. Madam Majority Chair, Madam Majority Floor Leader, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
Having heard the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Committee of the Whole report.
Mr. President, your Committee of the Whole, having had under consideration bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. Senate File 71, do pass. Senate File 126, do pass. Senate File 57, do pass amended. Senate File 122, do pass. Senate File 124, do pass amended. Senate File 20, do pass amended. Senate File 27, do pass. Senate File 39, do pass amended. Senate File 43, do pass. Senate File 88, do pass amended. Senate File 67, do pass amended. Senate File 107, do pass. Senate File 44, do pass. Senate File 46, do pass amended. Senator Love, Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Love.
Move for
You need to move
adoption.
for adoption of the Committee of the Whole report, if you would.
I move for adoption of the Committee of the Whole report.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Committee of the Whole report has been adopted. Congratulations, Senator Love.
Well done. All right, any announcements? Ellen, we good? All right, Madam Majority Floor Leader, that clears the desk.
Mr. President, I move that we stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Thursday, February 19th.
Any announcements? Senator Landon.
Mr. President, thank you. Your Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, Cultural Resources Committee will meet tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, to take up Senate File 26, Game and Fish Property Tax Exemption Amendments. That's in room 4 downstairs, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Senator Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Senate Labor, Health, and Social Services Committee will meet tomorrow, Thursday, February 19th, upon noon recess in Capitol Extension Room E001 and online to continue work on Senate File 121, Wyoming Pharmacy Act amendments.
Thank you. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like the body to know that, and the public to know that the Senate Transportation, Highway, and Military Affairs Committee has cleared its workload of Senate files, and we will not be meeting in the morning.
Senator Olson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 1 has almost cleared its workload. It will meet tomorrow, Thursday, upon noon recess in W002 to consider the last 3 bills that we have. Senate File 99, Prescriptive Easements for Electricity Delivery. Senate Joint Resolution 6, Shared Parenting Day. And Senate File 116, Surface Water Drainage Utilities.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Appropriations will be meeting on noon recess in E202. We'll be beginning with Senate File 85, the Raven Act, and then all other referrals will be considered during the day, time permitting.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to remind everyone, our good chairman of the Agriculture Committee was excused because the Joint Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources Committee is hosting the Forest Health briefing tonight upon adjournment in the auditorium. So just a reminder to everyone.
Thank you. Further announcements? You all should have your 3rd reading budget amendments. Be ready to go tomorrow on the budget. You've all heard the Majority Floor Leader's motion. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. The Senate will stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Thursday, February 19th.